Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're audible.
All right, great. Okay. Thank you so much, Amol, for the kind words and for introducing me. Thank you, EduMinerva team, for having me speak with all of you. Um, Today we are going to talk about GRE, how to prepare for it, how to plan for it, and then how do you land a college that you prefer, and a college that gives you good scholarship. So let's get started. Before we go on, let me introduce myself and talk about my background so that all of you have an idea about where I'm coming from and how my suggestions um, have been come throughout my career. I started off by doing my bachelor's in computer science from the IIT Vellore. Then I worked as a software developer at Akamai Technologies for 3 years. Then I gave my GRE, got a score of 323, and also got a scholarship of 20,000 from Carnegie Mellon, where I ended up doing my master's in information security. From then I worked as a security engineer at Walmart Labs for 2 years, and currently I'm working at Facebook as a security engineer. So before we get started, a disclaimer: my opinions are my own. I am not a professional GRE coach. Uh, all of the things that I talk about been have I've learned from my experience, and like I do not do this for a living. Um, so take all of my suggestions with a grain of salt. All right, let's talk about the agenda. First, we are going to go with the three W's for GRE. I have seen that I think we have students from all the 4 years in this workshop. So I would want to give first and second year students a background on GRE as well. Then we will talk about how to prepare for GRE. Once you're done with GRE, what next? And then we will talk about COVID-19 impact on international education. I know a lot of you are worried about how COVID-19 has affected international education and the job market. Then we're going to talk about scholarships. How do you maximize your probability of getting scholarships, and how do you um, maximize all all the avenues of getting scholarships? Then we will go on to the bonus section, things that I wish I knew when I was in college, and then we would go on to questions that some of you have already asked. So I'm going to go over the common questions that were asked, and then we will also move on to the live Q&A. So let's get started. Uh, what is GRE? As Amol had already talked about it, GRE is the Graduate Record Examinations. It consists of 4 sections and one analytical writing assessment. The 4 sections are broken down into 2 verbal sections and 2 quantitative reasoning. That's basically maths. You can score a maximum of 340 points, 170 for verbal and 170 for quantitative reasoning. And then your AVA score is out of 6. You are welcome to give GRE throughout the year. Once you give GRE, you have a pool of period of a month, or at least that's what was the case when I gave GRE. Why GRE? GRE is needed for applying for masters. Most of the countries accept it, or at least the top ones do. Some MBA colleges accept it, but we will talk about more about this later. When to give GRE? As I mentioned, you can give GRE throughout the year, but there are some factors that you should consider before planning for giving GRE and planning for higher education. First, you should know what academic session are you aiming for. Uh, so most of the colleges have a fall intake. Some of them also have a spring intake. That's in addition to fall. And then some lower grade colleges also have a summer intake. We will talk more about this later. Then you should keep in mind the universities that you are targeting and what their post deadlines are. Once you have done that, you should keep in mind that the earlier that you apply, the higher your chances of getting a scholarship are. So it's inversely proportional to how early you apply. You should also keep a buffer of 3 to 6 months. That's the time you're going to take for preparing your application. That includes your SOP, your LORs, applying to universities. So it's going to take that much time. Then you should also keep a buffer. Things can go wrong. You can mess up your GRE attempt. You need 1 month of cool off period before you can reappear for the exam. Your SOP may need a lot of refactoring, and that may take a lot of time. LORs, the professor that you ask LORs off of may not have the time to give you LORs, and thus that would get. So let's talk about how to prepare. We're going to break this down based on the different sections. Let's talk about quants or maths. First off, I would like to point out that you should absolutely aim for the perfect score. As Indians, we are good at maths, and therefore we should make use of that talent or brain aptitude for maths um, to get that perfect 170. That brings me to my second point: practice and practice. Since we want a perfect score, there is no room for even a small mistake. Um, when you are starting off your exam, uh, if you committed a mistake early on in the exam, each mistake can cost you 2 points. So if you have gotten 3 questions wrong, that's immediately 6 points off of your maximum score, and that may make a difference between getting an A plus tier university versus an A tier university. So if you lost 5 points, that means that you could have, if you were scoring 320, you could have had 325. That's enough to get you into Stanford, but 320 not so much. Resources, there are enough resources for quants, and I wouldn't worry about that. So like Balance Guide and Kaplan GRE Plus are some resources that I would suggest, but in general, quants resources are plenty out there. How to prepare verbal? Verbal is where what gets us means the most, because it's not our first language. So, first point, vocabulary matters the most. Even if you sort of knew what a word means, that is going to confuse you in the exam. GRE is made in a way that even though they have multiple choices, most of them would have confusing or very similar answers, and that is what is going to confuse you. Unless you know the exact meaning of a word, um, you are highly probable of making a mistake. Quiz cards. If you don't know what quiz cards are, basically they are cards which have a word on one side and then you turn it back and then you have the meaning of it. It's useful in terms of how easily you can carry it around. If you were traveling, you can just take them with you in your pocket and you can prepare from it. That being said, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. In my experience, I did not like quiz cards as much as I did giving mocks. I Even though I went through a lot of quiz cards, um, I I felt as if I did not retain the information. So find out what works for you. Get Magoosh or some other coaching. It really helps. Online works fine. I did my Magoosh coaching online. It's mostly self-driven. They just give you material and you read through it. They don't have classes, or maybe they do now. Give lots of mocks. There are free resources available. I would think there are at least 20 25 mocks that you can find online for free, and you can just blaze through them after you have prepared enough. And then you can also buy a pack. I think you can buy um, a pack of 10 um, mocks for 10,000 rupees. Go for them. I think that would be really useful. And especially they get you used to how it feels like sitting through those 3 hours. So as it helps as to give as many mocks as possible. Some resources that I suggest are Balance Guide, Manhattan Prep, and Princeton Review. Manhattan Prep and Princeton Review also have their own mock exam set if you're interested. Now that you're done with GRE, what next? Research colleges. Ideally, you would have already done this before you started preparing for GRE, so that you knew when to start preparing for GRE. But if you haven't done it yet, you would start researching colleges and keep a track of deadlines. As I mentioned, the earlier you apply, the higher your chances of getting a scholarship are. So keep track of those deadlines. And also, I would like to mention that the some of the programs they have specific scholarships, and the scholarship deadlines are different from the program deadlines. So keep an eye out for the scholarship deadlines. SOP is the most important factor of your application packet. So write your SOP, get it reviewed, polish, and this would go on for at least 10 times. So keep a buffer for writing your SOP. LORs. Um, One thing that I wish I did before I left college was that if I should have talked to my professors, that I would be requesting LORs from them. So I would suggest that you should build a relationship before you leave college and ask them that you're going to, if you are not applying immediately after college, you should ask them that you are probably going to request for LORs 2 years in the future. And it really helps if you have already built that relationship versus trying to like remind them that I studied from you 3 years ago and could you please give me an LOR and then apply. So most of you are worried about COVID-19 impact, how they've affected education and the job market. So should you apply during the pandemic? If you're curious, admissions are still going on. Classes are online for the semester at least. Um, some colleges have in-person classes as well now if you're interested, but most of them offer them online now. Um, there are some cons, mostly cons, and some pros for applying during the pandemic. The cons are the difficulty and the risk. It's going to be difficult trying to get settled. There's risk in traveling during Corona economy, and then also looking for houses. All of that is going to expose you to risk. Non-IT jobs have been affected. Um, so if you are to apply right now, we cannot predict how the job market is going to be for non-IT IT jobs at least. Um, so if you were to graduate and the situation hadn't improved, then it's going to be bad. The third con is that you cannot get the whole experience. One of the benefits of applying abroad is that you are looking forward to seeing what the other country offers compared to what India did. And you are looking for new experiences. And until the whole country opens up, you are bound to miss some of the experience. Probably increase expenses. For example, if you were going to live with 4 people, now you're probably going to live with 2 people. Or if you are not no longer going to take an Uber pool, you're going to take an Uber X. You're probably not going to take the public transport. So all of those costs add up. Um, there's some pros as well. Some of the colleges are offering reduced fees, um, and then since not a lot of people are applying right now, there's less competition, and hence there are higher chances of you getting through a more ambitious university than you would normally do. So let's talk about scholarship. Um, how do you maximize the probability of scholarship? I know some of you were interested in this question. There are 3 avenues. One is from the college that you're applying to. Um, the factors that contribute to getting a scholarship are high GPA, 8.0 and above is good. But there's a caveat here. Some of Indian colleges just hand out have their factors and all of that. So basically, it's going to be you should have a high relative GPA in your college. Um, so 8.0 has a start there. Um, academic publications. It is useful if you have academic publications, but if you don't, it's not the absolute worst. So don't worry about it if you're graduating this year. But if you are in your second year or third year, or maybe your first year, um, you should try to get an academic publication. It definitely helps. A good GRE score. What is a good GRE score? It if you are applying for GRE and if you're spending that much money to come to the US, I would suggest that you absolutely aim for the best. You should aim for the top 10, and then if you want to get into the top 10, you should deduce that your score should be above 320 definitely, and if you are above 325, you are gold. A good SOP. Um, Writing SOPs is difficult. One because you have to like think about a lot of things, right? And there's limited words, and you have to convey why you deserve to be accepted into a college. And more importantly, it is difficult because not a lot of people know how to review SOP. So once you've written your SOP, you need to find someone who can review your SOP and give you comments so that you can reiterate over it. Has already applied for masters and written SOPs and has experience reviewing SOPs, you can reach out to them. Um, if you know of a person that is good at English, but that does not necessarily mean that would equate to good SOP reviewing skills. If you have none of that, then you can also ask for professional help. But that comes expensive. Just that's something I wanted to point out. International research. This one is interesting. So basically, I found out later when I was doing my masters that you, uh, when you're doing your bachelor's, you can reach out to your professor, and the professor has a network with professors outside of your college, abroad as well. And these professors abroad are looking for research assistants, and you can basically ask your professor to introduce you to someone else abroad to avail of this opportunity. And if you're able to get to this opportunity, it usually means that you're going to get a fully paid uh, internship to live over there. Your travel would be free, your living expenses would be free, and you would also get a stipend. Not to mention, if you do well in your your um, your research over there, the professor there is bound to help you get admission into that college. So if you are going to apply for international research, try to get a university that you would want to be admitted to for your masters. That would really help. One in getting admission there, and two in also getting a scholarship, because now a professor working there is recommending you for that admission. College selection. You're bound to get higher scholarship if you're applying for uh, a moderate or um, a moderate capacity tiered university versus an ambitious one. That means that if you had a score of 320 and you were, or maybe 315, and you were aiming for um, Stanford, MIT, or Cornell or CMU, it's going to fall in the ambitious category. Versus if you have a score of 315 and instead apply to uh, I don't know, University of Florida, uh, Georgia Tech, so you would have a higher chance of getting a scholarship there. So the you should you think about where what is your dream university, and then you should set a target for yourself. But once you've given your GRE and you're settled with your score, then you should see, is my priority getting admission to a higher tiered university versus do I want a higher scholarship? Apply early. We've already touched upon this point. Um, Apply to college specific scholarships. When you're applying to a college or program, some of the programs also have very specific niche scholarships. For example, I know that a lot of universities have uh, scholarships for women in tech. So if you are keeping an eye out for that, you're going to win. Um, the um, second part is like, even the government offers you scholarship. So you can go to scholarships.gov.in and see if the government is offering any scholarships for your program. And there are also like field-specific scholarships. Some of the scholarships apply for computer science. Some of them apply for only arts. So look for look for scholarships that are offered by the government. Once you're in college, you can also apply for a teaching assistantship or a research assistantship. This particularly holds true for government colleges in the US. If you got a TA or an RA at a government college, it is more likely than not that your complete tuition would be waived off. Versus if you were going to go to a private university, it's only going to pay you, I don't know, $15 or $20 an hour, but they won't waive off your uh, tuition fees. Bonus. How to make the best of your college years. All of you are in your bachelor's and you have plenty of time. So I just wanted to point out some of the things that I wish I did before I graduated. If you are in computer science, definitely look at Google Summer of Code. This was something that I was completely unaware of. If you don't know Google Summer of Code, it basically you can apply for sort of an internship during your summers, and then one you get experience contributing to open source, and secondly they also pay you very handsomely, and it works wonders for your application as well as your resume. Write a research paper. Right now, you have a lot of time. So, reach out to your professor for a subject that you are passionate about and ask them if they are researching about, like, what are they researching about and that you would like to contribute. And more often than not, they would have lots of topics that they have thought about researching on, but they never had the time. And now, like, they're always looking for people that are willing to help. So reach out to your professor, and ask the professors for research opportunities abroad. We touched upon this. Scholarships. If one particular one that I wanted to mention was my tax. Basically, if you have a GPA above 8.5, um, and if you're in your third year, you can apply to my tax and internship in Canada for 3 months, fully paid, and it's an amazing experience. Trying to do your masters, do it sooner. Uh, when I was applying, I thought that having work ex matters for doing your masters, but not really. Um, that does not hold true for MBA though. So if you're doing your masters, do it as soon as you can, rather than waiting for some time working in it. And um, more often than not, if you unless you're going to work in an industry, uh, or work in an industry in the US that you were working before in India as well, um, your experience in India is not going to count. So, for example, I worked as a software developer, um, and then I change my field into information security. And that is the point of doing masters, that you want to learn something new. And once, if you're learning something new and want to work in something new, that means you have to start from scratch. So might as well do it from the beginning, right? Unless you you are still confused about what to do and what not to do, I would definitely recommend take some time, work for some time, and then figure out what you want to do. And if you want to still do masters or do you want to do an MBA, and if you want to do a masters, what is the field that you feel passionately about? So questions. We are going to cover some of the common questions that you all have asked during during uh, during filling the form. Which countries should you consider? Here are a few countries that I think you should consider, but this is not an absolute list. Uh, so America has visa issues. There is high risk, high reward. If you are able to make it, if you are able to get the visa, it's uh, the work that you are able to do here. The contribution that you're able to make here is a lot. You of course get paid a lot as well. UK harder visa issues in my experience. At least in America, you are able to work for 3 years at least if you are in STEM category. If you don't know STEM, it's science, technology, engineering, and maths, I guess. So if you are in any of these fields, you are able to work for 3 years versus if you were doing an MBA, a non-STEM course, you would get a 1 year work visa. In the UK, you just get a one year work visa, and then you're you're not no longer able to work. In Australia, it's an easy visa process, but other countries have better universities. Uh, but there is one or two that are really good over there. So if you can make it to those, that's great. Canada has an easy visa process, um, and although like salaries are effectively three-fifths of US, but with similar expenditure. There are some universities in Europe as well, in Germany, France, Switzerland, but I don't have a lot of experience with that or a lot of friends that have applied to Europe. So I'm just going to leave it there. So some of you asked, can you pursue an MBA through GRE? Yes, but the top tier universities are going to prefer GMAT. So if you took your GRE and then you had another candidate with a similar profile and with an equivalent GMAT score, they're going to prefer the GMAT candidate. Um, so to give you an example, I have a friend who got a 339 out of 340 on GRE, and he applied to the top 10 MBA schools in the US, and he got a call only from one. So then he took a year off, and then he applied through GMAT, and that's when he moved to do his MBA. So you can definitely do MBA through GRE, but there are the top universities would probably prefer GMAT. That being said, this is not an absolute truth. So you should research about the university that you are targeting, and then make your decision. Is it too late to give GRE this year? So there are two sessions that I would consider for studying here. There are the fall deadline, the fall session and spring session. The fall session starts in August and the spring session starts in January. The fall deadlines fall between October to January, and spring deadlines fall between March to August. So we're going to cover this later, but it's late to apply for fall 2021 if you haven't started with your GRE preparations. If you've already given your GRE, then all the power to you. But you can try for the spring session if you haven't started preparing for GRE. That brings me to my next slide. Which session should you consider, spring or fall? Um, so all colleges offer a fall. All colleges, all programs offer a fall intake, but only some of them provide a spring intake. So there are some pros to spring semester. There's less people applying, therefore lesser competition, and therefore more probability of you getting into a 8-year university. Um, Another pro is session starts in Jan. So if you were graduating in July or May, you would have 6 months off before you were going to start your masters. Versus if you were doing the fall semester the same year, you're probably going to finish your bachelor's in May, June, and then you're going to fly off in July. So you're not going to get a break. There are cons. The course end time is December. So usually companies have a quota for their entire year, and they usually run out by December. So when you're graduating, there are lesser jobs. That being said, it's not necessary that you won't find a job. It's just lesser jobs in the market, and therefore, I guess it would be harder to find competing offers and therefore negotiate. Um, but I have friends who graduated in December and they're doing as well as anybody else. Um, and more importantly, not all programs have spring intake. So it comes down to what program are you interested in, and then take a call from there. When should you start the process for GRE? This is a flowchart that I would suggest. Um, First, select the session. Do you want to go for the fall or the spring semester? Um, and then research deadlines for impressive programs. Uh, then, from the deadline, subtract 3 to 6 months for application building. That's the time that you're going to take for writing your SOP and reiterating over it, getting your LOR, and researching colleges. Then from those, then also subtract 3 to 6 months for focused preparation for GRE. So let's take an example. If you were to apply, and this was one of the questions, when should you start if you were graduating in 2022? So if you were applying for fall 2022, that's the August 2022 session. That means you were graduating in May 2022. Assuming the deadline is December 1st, 2021 for the fall session, that means that you would probably have to start your preparation in January 2021. Then that would take 6 months to give a GRE. That would begin June. Then you would also take 10 to 15 days to prepare for TOEFL. That would be July. Then you should have some buffer for a second GRE attempt if your first GRE attempt wasn't great. So that would be in August, and then the application preparation would be from August to December. So hopefully this helps. And now we can move on to the live questions.
Thank you, sir, for such a resourceful session. The session being so comprehensive and insightful raised a lot of questions and ideas. So now we'll proceed for the live Q&A session. Before moving on to the live Q&A session, we have a gentle reminder for the audience. The EduMinerva team has curated some relevant material for GRE preparation. And if you are interested, please join our WhatsApp group, the link for which has been posted in the chat box. Sir, our first question is, if your BTech is in EEE, electrical and electronics, and you want to do masters in computer science and engineering, what are the requirements to make your profile according to it?
Is that triple E or is that ECE?
Triple E.
Okay, so triple E, as far as I know, does not have a lot of computer programs, computer subjects in their program versus ECE. So what people usually do is that if a college does not accept triple E into their CS programs, they take admission into an ECE program and then take majority of the courses in computer science. And since you've taken courses in computer science, you can still apply for jobs in computer science. No one is going to like question that you've done masters in ECE. Why do you want to do a job in CSE? That being said, it's not unheard of that people from Triple E have gotten into computer science. It's just going to be like, I just want to point out, it's going to be hard um, to to uh, to prepare or sorry work in coding directly in masters. So I would suggest that you should do some coding before you join your masters.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir, for such an.
1 second, Amal. 1 second. Amal, yeah. Apur, Ishita has asked, will you be sharing these slides? Will you be providing them with these slides? They actually want to view this again.
Yeah, for sure. I can provide that.
Okay, great.
Okay. Thank you for such an insightful answer. So the next question is, the Ivy Leagues are more about a diverse application. So how can a student branch out when talking about inculcating extracurricular, etc.?
So Ivy Leagues. Um, so okay, if you don't know what Ivy Leagues are, Ivy Leagues is a group of 7 or 8 universities, and these were basically coined as Ivy Leagues because I guess in 1970s or long, I don't know what year, all the rich kids used to go to these Ivy Leagues. So just because it is an Ivy League does not mean it is a top university in that branch. So that's my first part. But if you still want to go to an Ivy League, you should actually for masters. I don't know how much diversity affects your application. If you were doing an MBA, absolutely your co-curriculars and your diversity matters a lot. But for masters, I am not sure how much diversity is going to work for your SOP. But also, this is what my experience tells me. I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay, sir. Sir, our next question is, what type of profile gets accepted in US Berkeley MS, in CS, MIS, and other scholarship opportunities at UC?
Okay. UC Berkeley has a very um, high high denial rate, and they require a lot of um, a very strong profile. So I would say at least more than 325 in GRE, some academic papers, and then you would also be applying to a field that you've done your research in. That would be the criteria for doing masters in that field from computer science at least. MIS criteria in general is far simpler than doing a master's in it. That also means that MIS is not as technical as master's would be. So that is something to keep in mind, depending on what you want to work later in. If you want to be deep technical, then probably MIS is not the choice. Of course, the choice that you would want to take. But if you want to like move towards sort of technical, sort of management, A middle ground, MIS is a great choice.
Okay. Okay, sir. So, so the next question is for students in second year. I have heard people and counselors say that you have got time. How can a second year student start his or her preparation?
Yeah. So second year would would be graduating 2022. So you already have an answer. You should probably start in January. If you want to go do your MS immediately after your bachelor's. So if you were wanted to do your masters in August of 2022, then you would start it in January. But if you want to take some time off, you could take. That being said, it is beneficial of taking the GRE right now because GRE is valid for 5 years. You could also just take your GRE and not apply right now and apply next in 2020 for the 2023 session. So at least you wouldn't have the pressure of studying while you were working, which is what I had to do when I was working at Akamai. I had to after work I would have to study, which is a little tricky to balance. It's still possible, but might as well just get done with it while you're in college.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you. So, sir, the next question is what is the acceptance rate at Carnegie Mellon University to pursue masters?
I do not know that number off the top of my head. You're welcome to look it up online.
Okay, no problem, sir. Uh, sir, the next question is if someone already had visa for the state, will that increase chance of getting a visa again by planning for masters?
Uh, when they say they have a visa, I'm assuming they have a tourist visa. I don't know how much that increases your chance of getting a visa, but I know that the short way of getting a visa is getting into a good university. Um, Most of the decline or rejects in visa interviews is for universities that I don't know are not maybe in the top 50. So the short way of getting into getting that visa would be getting into the top 10 to 15 universities, and that is what you should be aiming at anyways.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir, the next doubt is can we ask professors for help with research papers in the third semester itself?
Absolutely, you you should ask them for contributing to research as soon as you can. I guess um, third year students is the prime time, but some people may also try to reach out to them in the second year. At the very worst, they may just ask you to come back next year. Uh, so so ask as soon as you can, and also they have a, like a limited bandwidth to help students because they also have to do their own research and they have to teach, and there's a lot of other uh, weight they have to bear. So as soon as they know that they need to help someone, it would help them plan better anyways.
Yes, true, sir. Sir, the next doubt is what to choose between UC Berkeley or University of Toronto for master.
University of Toronto is very good. Um, if you don't mind working in Canada, I would go for University of Toronto.
Okay. Okay. So next question is, are research papers important to avail from good scholarship? And what are the important points for visa interview?
Yes, research papers are help work wonders while building your application. Um, and sorry, what was the second part of the question?
In second part was, what are the important points for visa interview?
Um, Honestly, I gave my visa interview 7 years ago, so I'm not sure. It, from my experience, again, if you're going to a good university, they didn't ask me much, and they just asked me what what was the source of how am I going to afford my education? That was it. Um, that being said, like a lot of people get rejected on main reasons as well. So it also depends on your luck.
Okay. Sir, you just spoke about switching from triple E to then, you just spoke about a student who was asking a question that how to switch from triple E to then doing masters in computer science. So we have a question that please talk about doing BTech in EC and then switching to CSE for masters. Like, what is the difference there?
That should be much easier because EC, as far as I know, EC has a lot of computer courses in BTech as well. So actually, mm, most of the people that I know in EC are working in computers. So that's that's much easier to do. Not just because of their uh, them doing them holding a degree in Triple E, but also because uh, they have already studied uh, programming before.
Yes. Okay, sir. How to decide a particular field to pursue master? This has been asked by a question who is this has been asked by a student who is pursuing bachelor's in IT.
How do you? Okay. Um, there are a couple of ways. One would be that you just okay. Either you have studied something during a bachelor's that piqued your interest. That is one way to go. If you are just lost and you want to do your master's, you know that you want to study more, but you just don't know which is a good field. One One way is that people prefer something that has a high market value and high demand, low supply. So, and a budding field that would be AI, and natural language processing, deep learning. Um, so you would probably want to look at fields that have these high demand, low supply. Um, um, So yeah, two things would be either you're interested in a field. If you don't know what you're interested in, then you would probably just search what gets you the most uh, value. And yeah,
Okay. Thank you, sir. The next question is a gap of 1 year feasible for GRE? If yes, what should one do during that gap?
so if you were going to take a gap of 1 year, I would suggest that you give your GRE while you're in college. So you take anyways, like your last semester is it should be pretty chill. So if you haven't found the time, give your GRE before you graduate. And once you have given your GRE, it makes things easier. You could either um, find a good job that prepares you for life after GRE, or you could also like I've also seen people that have given their GRE, have figured out what college they want to go to, and they just like chill for a year.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So the next question is, how can we grab some internships or TA jobs in the first semester of MS?
Yes. One good way is that you reach out to professors before you have joined, and here is when your research papers come into help. Um, so if you can show a professor that you've already done research in a field that he's working on, you are more likely to get that research assistantship. For teaching assistantship, you can not become a TA before you've taken that course yourself, um, unless you're doing a TA for a bachelor's course. That is harder to do before you've reached the college, and traditionally, um, professors require their TAs to be chosen before the course starts. So therefore, the TAs would have already been chosen for the first semester, but you can get an RA in your first semester because one, you can apply for them before you come, and two, sometimes there's still positions open when you reach university.
Okay. So that was a very detailed answer. Thank you. So the next question is, do certificates carry value like research paper does?
Depends on what certificate. For example, well, certificate. Um, for example, if you were to do, I don't know, Google Summer of Code, or if you were to present something at an international conference, it depends on what certificate. If you're talking about like a fest level certificate, not really. If you're talking about national certificate, sure, that will help. But it depends on what kind of certificate. Most likely, that holds true for research papers as well. It depends on what journal are you publishing it in. There are some very highly respected journals, and it's very hard to get into them if you have a research paper in that versus like a very uh, not well known journal that won't count as much.
Okay. Okay, sir. So, so the next question is it worth to go for masters if you are not getting any scholarship?
That depends on your economic status. If you are comfortable in paying for your masters without the scholarship, it's fine. And also, it depends on what college are you targeting and what college have you gotten admission to. For example, if you're going to get an admission in a state university, and there are plenty of state universities that are really good. NCSU is great. Uh, University of Texas, great. Um, um, what else? So if you are going to get admission in these state universities, it's probably going to cost you like twenty to $30,000. Versus if you were going to go into a private university, um, it's going to cost you like $60,000 to $80,000. That being said, as you go to a better university, the I don't want to like spec- specifically say this, but like the chances of getting a better job is higher. That does not mean that like not well-known colleges cannot get you the same job. It's just high. It's more probable. So if you are going to go to a better university, you're also, even if you do not have a scholarship, you're also bound to make more money much faster. So if you were going to go to a top-notch university and you paid $100,000 for it, you're also going to get $200,000 per year. So you would probably pay off your loan in 4 years anyways.
True. Okay, sir. Sir, the next question is how can students from Tier 3 colleges get opportunities for international research, etc.?
Sorry, could you repeat your question?
Yes, sure. Sir, how can students from Tier 3 colleges get opportunities for international research, etc.?
Um, one way is one short way is to reach out to your professors who will reach out to their network. Second is you it's it's a little bit harder because the network that your seniors network might not uh, also be at maybe they're not as many seniors at the same university that you're targeting. Um, but you can also like self start. For example, if you're not able to find a research opportunity abroad directly, you can reach out to your professor, do some research uh, for a semester or two, and then you can reach out to a professor abroad directly or through your professor, and tell them that this is the research or this is what I've been working on. I see that you have been working on the same thing. I would like to I would like to research with you, and I would like to do that for a semester. So you can do that indirectly as well, if you don't have a direct network.
Okay. Okay, sir. Sir, we have another question. For 1 year experience after BTech, what would be more beneficial, working in a startup or working in a company through campus placement?
If you were to work for 1 year,
For 1 year, yes, for 1 year experience.
yeah, okay. Um, it depends on what that campus placement company is doing. Um, just because it's a campus placement does not mean they're not going to give you good work. So startups have, depending on what startup it is, most likely they're going to have a high learning curve, which is going to be beneficial. But that does not mean that a campus placement with a big company might not give you the same learning curve. It depends on what team you're being placed in, what company it is, what do they do. If you were to choose between the two, I would say if it is like, and if it was a mass recruiting company, uh, it is a little less likely that you're going to find interesting work versus what you would find in a startup.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, sir, the next question is, how do internships affect the GRE profile? Do government organizations help in boosting the profile?
Could you repeat that question?
Yes, sure, sir. How internships affect our GRE profile, and do government organizations help in boosting our profile?
Um, it it matters more that what you did in those internships and what you can talk about from those internships and what you learned, than it mattering that you worked at a government facility versus a private facility.
Okay, okay. Sir, the next question is, what is the realistic overall cost for an Indian student to study in the United States?
So it varies greatly. If you were going to do it at a government university or a state-owned university, it would probably come to uh, $30,000. That would be, I guess, 25 lakhs for just the academic fees, and then living expenses would probably be um, 10, 8 to $10,000 a year. So you would probably get done in 50,000. That's a lot, maybe 40,000. But also, if you were doing it in a state-owned university and you got a TA and or an RA, your tuition fees is waived off. So suddenly, like it is down to, I don't know, just your living expenses, $10,000. Plus, you're also making money off the TA or the RA. If you were going to do it at a private university, um, and by private, I mean like even if you went to Stanford, that's not a government-owned university, or not as far as I know, but I know that they have high fees. They so um, you would then be looking at about $100,000, which is 70 lakhs, 74 lakhs.
Okay, okay, sir, thank you. So the next question is, how do we go about and start the research paper process during quarantine?
Um, I guess your classes are still going on, so you still have a connection with the professor.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess it's harder to make that relationship um, over a VC, and it would probably be harder for them to explain what the problem is over VC. But I think it's still possible. Everybody's working from home over VC. It should still be possible. Reach out to your professor.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, sir, the next question is, which college you can suggest for a moderate profile for masters in the USA or Canada?
Uh, Moderate profile. Um, I would say uh, it it depends on what course they are doing. Not all universities have like the best courses. For example, like if you were doing, it's different to do computer science from the top university for computer science versus if you were doing robotics, it would be a different university. Um, for moderate profile, I can talk about CS because that's where I am. If you were doing moderate, I would say Georgia Tech, North Carolina State University, um, um, MIS at Cornell, MIS at CMU. Um, USC is pretty moderate. yeah, those are some universities that come on the top of my mind. But I would also like to say there are plenty of forums. For example, there's edulix.com. You can basically post your entire profile that includes your GRE score, your work experience, your college where you've done your undergraduation, your complete profile, and you can ask people to evaluate it. You can also post like the university that you're targeting, and then people can categorize it into uh, very likely, moderate, or ambitious.
Okay, 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 sir. Thank you. Sir, the next question is: if we are getting admission in colleges from both US and Canada, which one should we prefer? Keeping in mind visa, job, which one should we prefer?
Uh, Given the current visa situations, I would say that you would probably want to prefer Canada if you don't mind the cold.
Okay. Okay, sir. So the next question is, sir, can you give some tips on how to boost our overall profile?
Um, a good GRE score and um, research papers. Yeah, like your GPA matters somewhat, but not as much as your GRE score.
Okay, sir. Sir, but to prefer university in New Zealand or Australia?
I am not sure about that. I haven't seen the universities in New Zealand.
Okay. Okay, sir. Sir, can you please repeat the name of the site that you just spoke about to
Yeah,
evaluate the profile?
yeah,
And is that service monetary?
no, it's Edulix, EDU L
Okay.
I X for xylophone
Okay.
.com. Um, and no, it's a free forum. It used to be very active when I was applying, but I just recently, like yesterday, I was looking at it. There are not a lot of people that are evaluating profiles anymore. So you would probably want to find something equivalent. There are some people that are still evaluating. You could, I guess, tag them onto your question and ask them nicely. Um, but since it's a free service, uh, it depends on how many people answer your question.
Okay, sir. So I think now we have reached the end of the session. We have completed. We are over with the Q&A session. Thank you, sir, for answering all the questions very patiently, and all the answers are very insightful. Thank you, all of you, for being a wonderful audience and an amazing audience. Sir, due to some time restraint, we will be ending the session now. Once again, thank you, all of you. And once again, a small gentle reminder please, if any of you is interested for some genuine GRE preparation material, please join our WhatsApp group. We have posted the link for the same in the chat box.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And if you
Thank
want to
you.
connect with me, you have my profiles there, uh, and I will be sharing these slides as well. So thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
All right.